So, okay, so you made the decision you were going to kind of go off, start trying to do your thing. Now you kind of started with, it sounds like, just doing some, like, I remember we talked originally, like doing some dog walking, getting hands on with dogs, stuff like that, and then started transitioning to helping with training certain behaviors to actually offering training programs. And what have you, in the short period of time you've been doing it for, what are some of your biggest takeaways and learning points you feel like you found through doing some of that?
Specifically in dog training or just in general?
Just in general, yeah.
Well, it's just, I've taken up a lot of hobbies in my life, and it was no different with this, that it's kind of funny how you walk into something thinking that it will be, I don't want to say easy,
Yeah.
but it's, you don't see all the challenges, and as a matter of fact, the better the dog trainer, the easier they make it look.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone who doesn't respect anything I go into, but like I said before, it's humbling, and all the little things that, you know, people like you on your videos aren't saying are so important.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it for sure. You know,
Yeah.
that's with every industry. You know, there's certain things I've looked at too where it's like, oh, that shouldn't be that difficult, right? But then you get into it and you start kind of digging into it and stuff, and you realize like what really all is entailed in it. It's pretty cool to see.
And then the other like bigger thing too is that I thought that there was just this one perfect way that you could find to train a dog.
Sure.
Like this check
Yeah.
this box, you know, and it's so much more important to, yeah, sure, you should have a structured program, ideally in a perfect world.
Yeah.
But you need to be ready to throw that right out the window, depending on the dog.
Yeah, 100%.
It's important.
100%. Yeah, I think you know, the concepts and the learning theory and all of that, it's all the same from dog to dog, right? The methods you're using, but that kind of combination of how you do it and all of that, it can adjust so often, and you have to be aware. Just like we were talking about with Fritz, the dog I'm working with yesterday, right? How, you know, we had our program, we're working him through, and then we get like halfway through his program, and because of some weird irrational fears and stuff that he has over like inanimate objects and environmental things and stuff like that, like we hit just like a huge roadblock with him where you know, at that point I needed to know how to adjust that program to like what's going to keep this dog successful, get him back on track, and make sure we don't run into that roadblock again with him, you know? And I think those are the things that I remember when I was really early in training, that shit would drive me bonkers. And I feel like I looked for answers in all the wrong places. Like, I remember early on when I was finding, and I feel like I found it most of the time in one-on-ones, not necessarily board and trains, because you could adjust and you could experiment all you want when you have a dog. So much freedom, right? And kind of figure it out. In one-on-ones, when I would run into that kind of stuff, I didn't know what the fuck to do, you know? And, you know, you kind of get good at, like, BSing it a little bit, like, as you're experimenting, right? Yeah, 100%. Like, you're kind of acting through it a little bit to some extent. But, like, I remember I spent, like, a solid year or two just, like, reaching out to different trainers and just trying to find this, like, answer of, like, how do you avoid those problems? When in actuality, it wasn't about avoiding those problems. It was about learning how to kind of bob and weave through them, you know? That's interesting. I feel like I never really like looked at that way, but like, yeah, that I feel like a lot of people want, and this is where I feel like trainers can fall into this trap that go to like seminar to seminar to seminar to seminar to seminar, right? Not that it's not important to learn. Obviously, like you're doing a lot of like checking this guy out and this guy out and this style out and this style out. But the problem is they're doing it with the purpose of trying to find that like magic pill, I feel like, as opposed to just like expanding their toolbox.
Yeah.
Right? Because the bigger your toolbox is with that kind of stuff, the more that when you encounter those issues, you could do things in a different way or adjust as needed to keep the dog successful. So,
I think you and I have a similar mindset in that no matter what you're, you know, dealing with, no matter what resource you're reading, you know, there's always going to be at least a little bit of a give and take where, yeah, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to take this, and you could take the best part of, you know, that information and leave the rest.
Yeah,
there's always something to learn from someone, right?
Yeah,
even learning from their mistakes.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before on here. Of you know, I think a lot of trainers out there, even the ones that we could heavily disagree with over things, they're doing things for a reason still, like they're doing A, B, C, or D because they do genuinely think that that's right and that's correct, and because they've seen success with it before, Nobody's doing stuff if it's never, ever been successful before with it, to some capacity. So you could still see that, and you could still figure out how to work through things depending on the dog, depending on the client, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, super cool. I think you're doing a really great job with your education and making sure that you're, expanding your knowledge base amongst a lot of different stuff,
Thank you, man.
And especially, God, I mean, I remember you told me a couple times, like, some of these books, you're like, yeah, I read the book like twice or something. Like,
yeah,
Jesus Christ, like, I've never even done that.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just feel like I'm hitting the ground running.
Yeah.
And I'm just cramming, but it's super easy because I've developed a passion, and I was saying before, I've taken up quite a few hobbies before where I feel like they, after a little while, didn't really motivate me. Mm-hmm. And the hobbies that motivated me the most were things that I went into thinking that they were easy. And then you just feel like you're just so insignificant in this giant world. And now it just opens up and you feel like, yeah, I know some stuff, but I don't know shit.
Yeah.
And this is like so interesting. And now I just feel like a dry sponge that needs to be.
Yeah.
Josh,
when it comes to like the photography industry and like when you were getting started in that, like, I feel like these things we talk about, like, we've never really generalized it like this before. It's always been very narrow with dog training, but like, I feel like that feeling and that kind of thirst to expand your knowledge without looking for just like really simple solutions for things, but for broader concepts, I feel like it's the same from, industry to industry.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially I can relate, I guess, to both of you, honestly, but it's like you're on different lengths of your paths, Mm-hmm. He's started quite a few years before you have, but he did the same. I mean, you did the same thing. You just kind of jumped into it,
Yeah.
And that's what I did with photography too. It was just like I was actually a manager at Melt. I worked at Melt for
nice. Independence,
Cleveland Heights and Menor.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I had no idea. I had like a friend that like watched Casey Neistat videos, and I was like, "Oh, that seems cool." He's like a vlogger on YouTube, I was like, "All right," and I just dumped a bunch of money into it and just like hit the ground running. Now I've been doing it for 4 years, but I taught myself everything. But I mean, as soon as I like feel good about something, I'm like, "Oh, this looks great," and then
you hit a fucking roadblock, right?
Yeah.
It's like, God, and then you like are just like, everything I've been doing up to this point is wrong.
Yeah. And then, and so I don't know, maybe I'm a competitive person.
Sure.
But, so there's a really, 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 really great, pet photographer that is right across the parking lot from him.
Yeah.
Greg Murray. And I always made like a joke, like he's my arch nemesis. Cause I used to do media for, Miracle Canine. And I was like, I have to get as good as him. Like, I got to do it better than Greg Murray or whatever. It was just like playful in my head, but it was like, like seeing those people have been doing it and been great at it. Like I've taken little things from them and put it into my own style. But yeah, like that's what you have to do is like not get like you could have been like, oh my God, David's so like 1,000 times better than me. I shouldn't do this. Or you can be like, David's inspiring, and that's why I want to get better at it. And you took it the right way. And like, I think it does correlate to anything. Is like, yeah, there's always going to be somebody better than you, and you got to learn why are they better than you. Like, what can you take from them to make yourself better?
Well, I think you said it well, where you said, just at different lengths of the path or different points of the path.
Exactly.
It's not that, sure, the person may be better, right? But they're just further along down that journey, right?
Exactly.
And the more that you can look at those and learn from, like, we like to pick people apart, right? Like, as a society, right? As far as like, oh, this person isn't doing this well or isn't doing this well or whatever it may be, as opposed to those are essential parts of that journey that made that person where they're at right now, right?
Exactly.
And if you could learn from those things in a non-judgmental way and not I'm just trying to be so much better than you kind of thing, like all egotistical, and just instead be like, listen, you're at this stage, what are the hurdles that you faced along the way? You could shorten that journey tenfold. And I think that's something I tried to do a lot. And I think that's why I think a lot of people are really shocked when they see, I've been training dogs for like I think I had my Instagram or my Facebook notification come up today. I got my first business card that said, me working for New Heights Dog Training and my
Yeah.
name and trainer under it 7 years ago today.
Yeah.
Right, which is cool that we're doing a podcast on that day, but 7 years. A lot of people look at me when they come in. They're like, "This fucking young guy hasn't been training dogs for 25 years, like all these other fucking guys." Right?
Yeah.
But because I spent so much time researching all these other people and talking to them and learning from them and stuff like that, I think that I've just cut my journey down quite a bit, right? And I think that's the reason why we've hit the success that we've hit. So I think that's a really, no matter what industry you're in, you have to be able to look at things that way.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's important to have the right mindset as a student. You
Sure.
know, we talked yesterday about approaching things with an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think people today, especially the bigger the ego, the more the problem,
Sure.
is that they don't know how to be inspired. You know, take music, for example. Every note's been played.
Sure.
You know, the difference between sometimes plagiarism and inspiration is a fine line, but
Yeah.
you know, you can use others to hoist yourself up positively, you know, or you can just kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But you're going to be so much better off if you just drop the ego. You're going to learn so much quicker if you just, hey man, this is inspiring. Please tell me more.
And we've talked about that on this podcast before. Is just some people just in the dog training world, but everywhere in general, you know, you get stuck like, this is the way I've been doing it, and this is how this works, and like I don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, and that it is that ego, and then they get stuck, and now they're getting left. Those people are getting left behind, and you can see it because they've never changed
Yeah.
what works.